designers, how's it going? I hope you're having a fantastic day so far. Welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad to have you here. I wanted to actually film today's video because recently I found out that I have ADHD. I've had it all of my life. I didn't know it was a thing until I saw a couple of reels on Instagram, and then I went, got diagnosed, and now I'm on pills. So things are all better. But even before I was diagnosed with ADHD, I actually had a system for time management because people with ADHD actually have no concept of time whatsoever. So I had a system, it was built in, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about it. And it's all about time management as an interior designer. I'm aware that it can be such a huge task to organize a project and to get to know how much time you need, where do you start, and how do you plan it. So I'll give you all the tools that I used and I'm still using to this very day that actually helped me be more efficient as an interior designer. Starting from tip number 1. Have you ever been so overwhelmed with thinking how many things you need to do to complete a project? Well, that is very normal. Overwhelm is a part of design. I feel like it's a main thing as an interior designer that you have to experience. For us to avoid overwhelm, we need to break things down into little teeny tiny bite-sized tasks. And when you chunk up a project, you make it more manageable actually, and you will understand what you need to do and when you need to do it. For example, you've got a villa or you've got a townhouse and you want to design it. What you have to do first of all is break the project to smaller rooms, and then from there break each room into smaller tasks. For example, I'll have to complete the mood board, I'll have to complete the furniture list, I'll have to complete 1, 2, 3 3D design. And once you do that, you'll understand that you don't have to do everything at one time, because that can actually give you analysis paralysis, because you'll see everything and you'll be like, oh my god, where do I start right now? Maybe one of the most important tips that I'll give you in this video. Tip number 2, after you have taken those tasks and you broke them down, what you need to do is actually write a to-do list. There's a lot of controversial opinions about to-do lists. Some people actually really hate them and others, they don't mind them. I don't mind to-do lists. I think that if you can manage how you're creating your to-do list and you're realistic about it, then it's totally completely fine to have a to-do list. And I keep all of my to-do lists on Notion. I actually plan a lot of my projects on Notion. Maybe next video we can take a dive into Notion. I have a really interesting setup and I love Notion so much. Unfortunately, they don't sponsor YouTube creators until they're 50,000 and above, and I'm still not at 50,000. So please don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you feel like you're getting value, and thank you so much for being here. So now that you know what you're going to do, what you need to do is actually prioritize what task you have to start with and understand which tasks are going to take the most amount of time. And you do that by actually creating an estimate. I always keep an estimate of how many hours do I need to work on this task or this task or this task. Sometimes weeks, sometimes months, depending on the project itself. But once you keep an estimated time, then you'll be able to schedule it later, which is the next step to do that. By prioritizing, I mean you need to take the most difficult, most time-consuming task and prioritize it unless it affects the process of design. Actually, as a person with ADHD, I had a lot of difficulty in prioritizing, but at the end of the day, you just need to work on the tasks that you set for yourself, regardless of any difficulties. So yeah, I worked out just fine. The next step is to keep a schedule. I keep a weekly schedule, and right now my niece actually joined the team of I See My Sketchbook, and she's been scheduling my week ahead and she's been keeping up with it, and I really appreciate her for being on my team. By the way, I'll leave her account here and I'll leave it down below. Go check her out. She's an incredible creator as well. I've always done scheduling on Google Calendar. Google Calendar is, in my opinion, the best scheduling software there is. I use it with Notion. Like, I have Notion and I have Google Calendar. These are my two main scheduling ways. And of course my handy dandy notebook, because who doesn't like a notebook? The next trick would be to give yourself a little bit of time, extra time on each task. So for example, if a task would take you usually 2 weeks, make it into 4 weeks, and this is the timeline that you give to the client. You do that so you can under promise and over deliver, and that's very important. So you are making sure that their expectations are a little lowered, so whatever you are providing you are achieving, or you're keeping your word just in case something happens. Life happens. So when you give yourself a little bit more time, you make sure that the client will also be happy with how you're delivering and how fast you're delivering, and of course aim aim for a lower timeline. Don't procrastinate till the last minute, but do not forget to give yourself a little bit more time to work on different tasks. Now, if you struggle with motivation and to sit down and work and keep that timeline, I have a little trick in my ADHD book, and that is something that I used before ADHD, but I didn't realize it was actually really helpful, and that is keeping a timer. You know how around any deadline you'd feel this burst of inspiration and you feel like you want to work harder and you get more creative? Well, you can fake that deadline by creating a timer. And I have different apps, I'll link them down below, on my phone for the Pomodoro timer, and I set 25 minutes of working and then 5 minutes of rest that I reward myself. Honestly, I don't always take these breaks because once you build that momentum, it will be easier for you to complete a task. But it's very useful to have a timer. It also helps you keep track of your time, and that would be my last step, is to keep track of how many hours you work on something, because I'm telling you, we always underestimate how much a task is going to take us, especially when we are doing computer work. It's very important to understand how many hours are you actually working, so when next time you're pricing, you understand how you're charging, which is also another topic that we might dive into deeper later. And yeah, I think these are the main tips that I have for you. Of course, there's another part of design, which is site and implementation. And implementation, unfortunately, even if you give it like the estimate or the estimated timeline, it doesn't always happen because there's a lot of people involved in that timeline. So you might have a delay in materials. When it comes to implementation, I always have a clause in my contract, which by the way is on my website. You can see that that clause is that you are not responsible for delays from third-party trades, from labor, from material delivery, furniture delivery, because these things you have no control over. You have control over the process that you can do yourself, which is going and purchasing the materials and coordinating and supervising, but you can't really make sure that, for example, if you buy a piece from Italy, it's going to be delivered by this timeline, even though sometimes they give you a timeline and it doesn't always work that way, you know. And for implementation, estimating how long it's going to take you to finish a project is actually really tricky, but the main trick is to actually sit down and see what you need to do, again going into chunking things up, giving them a to-do list, and going and asking, especially like when you need to work with trades, going and asking how long will it take you to finish this built-in, and how long do I need to wait to get this delivered, and you know, for installation, things like that. But always give yourself extra time. Even if they tell you a specific time, you need to give yourself an extra amount of time. If you want another video that shows exactly those steps one by one, especially when it comes to implementation, because there's a lot we can talk about, comment down below. And I really appreciate you being here. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and comment how do you cope with different tasks in interior design, how do you organize your time. And I hope you have a great time of the day wherever you are in the world. Goodbye.